and welcome to Freedom Forest Life. I am Laurie and today's video is going to be all about why we grow our own food. I'm also going to give some tips on where you could start if you're new to gardening, and also what you could grow for yourself if you have no garden at all. If you're new to our channel, welcome. And this beautiful land that you see around me here is what we call Freedom Forest. And Freedom Forest is 3 acres of food forest, permaculture style growing beds and wildlife haven. And it is our expression of sustainable growing and living, which is ever evolving. We grow here using a fusion style of no-dig, back to Eden and permaculture methods, and we don't use any chemicals or synthetic fertilizers on anything. We try and keep everything that we use and everything that we grow as natural as possible. And that leads me on perfectly to the main reason now why we grow our own food. Now, this certainly wasn't what got me into growing food, but now it has become the main reason why we grow our own food. So unfortunately here in the UK, the use of a chemical called glyphosate has increased over 400% in the last 20 years. And that's probably more in the United States. Now, if you haven't come across glyphosate before, you might know it better as Roundup, which is a common weed killer that you can buy in the stores and that you might have used on your patio or spot spraying in your garden in the past and not really thought too much about it. The problem is now is that Roundup or glyphosate is being used really commonly and really heavily in our modern agricultural ways. And this is really bad for many reasons, but 2 which stand out for me is, one, the mounting evidence now that the use of glyphosate in and on our food and soils is actually really seriously affecting our health and is linked to many of the modern illnesses and diseases that we're seeing more commonly since 1996, when this chemical was starting to be used a lot more, particularly in the United States, but also here in England. And the second reason why glyphosate Roundup is really bad news is because it's actually water soluble. And this means that it can run off the land and run into our water systems a lot easier than other chemicals and products which aren't water soluble. And unfortunately now glyphosate is being found in our water systems, in our rainwater, in pretty much everywhere because of how much we are using it. Now, I won't go on too much about the science behind glyphosate, because there are so many people out there who can do so much of a better job of it than me. But what I would recommend is, if this is something you'd like to learn more about, is to look up the work of Dr. Zach Bush, and I'll put some links to some of his work which I found really powerful and interesting. I'll put the links in the description below. But yeah, if the issues around glyphosate and weed killers, if it's something that you're not familiar with yourself and you are interested and keen to keep yourself as healthy as possible, I would strongly recommend learning more about glyphosate. With this knowledge of the liberal use of chemicals on our crops and on our soil is why to us it is more important than ever now to know your food, to understand where it's come from and how it's been grown. Now, I didn't always know or understand a lot of this stuff, obviously. I always knew that organic was better, but to be honest, I never really understood why. It was just, I was told that organic was better, and so I just believed it. and didn't really take it a lot further. And then it kind of became a bit like the chicken and the egg for me. As I became an adult and I started to cook more, I wanted to grow my own food, and the more I grew my own food, the more I wanted to cook, because it gave this complete cycle of connection, of knowing where my food was coming from, or as much of my food as possible, where it was coming from start to finish. I'd have my hands on it while it was in the ground and while it was growing, whilst I was harvesting it, and then again in the kitchen, creating this beautiful full cycle connection. Okay, so the next reason why we like to grow our own food is because of packaging. And in this world which seems so filled with plastic and waste right now, it seems that food is just another one of those things that is creating so much excess packaging. And that is twofold, both one in the wasted packaging after it's been used, but also in the manufacturing of the packaging before it's used. So it's kind of like a double whammy on planetary impact and use of resources. So it's been really mind-blowing actually, that the more food we've grown for ourselves, the more we've noticed the impact that that has had on our weekly rubbish consumption. And so that is as good a reason as ever to grow as much of your own food as possible. Even if it's just a little bit, it makes such a big difference. Another great reason to grow your own food is because it saves so much money. Now, there can be some initial outlay to get yourself set up with things like beds and composts, but once you are organised and going, you'll just have some small annual costs such as seeds. But to give you an example, I could buy a packet of mixed salad seeds, organic, for 99p, and that would give me enough cut and come again salad to see us through the whole of a season. And added to that, it would also save on all that plastic waste from buying all of that bagged salad from the supermarkets. And then last but certainly not least, growing your own food is so rewarding. It gives you a connection to your food. It gets you outside in the fresh air, which has so many benefits. It gets your hands in the dirt. It gets you building a better immune system. And it also lets you know exactly what you are putting in your body, how it was grown, where it came from, what the soil was like that it was grown in. And it gives you such a sense of satisfaction when you have planted those seeds, watched those plants grow, and then harvested them and produced it into some yummy dinner or lunch for yourself. The benefits here, I could go on and on and on, but it is just such a rewarding thing that we are all capable of doing for ourselves. If you are just starting out on your food growing journey and you're thinking of starting a garden maybe for this coming season, what I would recommend is to start fairly small and only grow things that you know that you like to eat. Now, personally for me, if I had a limited space or time to put into growing food, I would begin with things like greens and salads. So cut and come again salads and lettuce, and things like spinach and rainbow chard, which you can keep harvesting from and that will keep growing throughout the season. So it will make much better value of your space and your time. I would also grow a couple of tomatoes if of course you like tomatoes, because if you haven't had homegrown tomatoes before, the taste and the freshness is a whole new experience from the store-bought tomatoes which most of us know today. You could also grow tomatoes and maybe a couple of beans up above where you're growing some salad and greens to make better use of your space. One thing I've noticed over time with people who are new to growing food for themselves is that they often try and cram too many things into the growing space that they have, which often leads to disappointment if the crops don't do so well because of overcrowding. So my number one tip for you, if you are growing food for yourself for the first time in your veggie garden this year, is to make sure you give everything enough space so that your crops will thrive and you will have an abundance of whatever it is that you choose to grow. If you don't have a garden at all, there are still things that you can grow for yourself. And one of the things I would highly recommend is sprouting. And sprouts you can grow on your kitchen side or on a sunny windowsill in a sprouter similar to this one, although there are hundreds of variations out there that you can buy, or you can even just make them yourself with terracotta pots. Sprouts are amazing because they are so nutrient dense that I still grow them anyway, despite all the vegetables that we have here. And if you would like to find out more about sprouting, I wrote an article all about them and how to sprout, which you can find on our website at www.freedomforestlife.co.uk under the heading called Homegrown, which is where I have a few blogs. And I will also put the link about the sprouting into the description box below. I believe right now we're providing about 50% of all of our food needs from what we grow here at Freedom Forest. Over time, we would like to get this a lot higher and become much more self-sufficient. Hopefully only buying in some essential items which we can't grow or process for ourselves here, such as wheat flour and flax and probably some oils. But the plan here is that we hope to sell enough of our surplus crops that we can use the money to cover the costs of the things that we can't grow and provide for ourselves, therefore closing the loop of our food system and giving us a really high level of self-reliance from our beautiful land here at Freedom Forest. I'm going to be making another video soon on the things that we're already self-sufficient in here at Freedom Forest, so stay tuned if you'd like to hear more about that. In the meantime, we would love to hear from you about the crops that you're self-sufficient in and why you choose to grow those crops, or just what your favourite things are that you grow for yourselves and why. So please leave us a comment in the box down below. If you've liked this video today, please give me and Murph a thumbs up. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we look forward to seeing you here again soon. Thanks for watching. Peace and plants. Just wait for Dad, eh? You must nearly be done now, surely. Come on, Mur, I need some Mur power. Do I just do it all again? What do you think?